Welcome to Writing the Wrong Way, a podcast for readers who want something strange and exciting, and writers who need something new. If you want to support this podcast, please consider buying my new book, The National Gallery. I'm extremely proud of this book because it may be my best book, and it is certainly my most personal and heartfelt book. But just because I say it's heartfelt doesn't mean it isn't full of weirdness, like sonnets about Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and elegies for my dead iPhone. For a limited time, if you buy a copy of the National Gallery directly from me, I will sign it, and I will also send you a signed copy of my previous book, The Politics of Knives, for no additional cost. So you can order the book and get your free book with it at thenationalgallery.ca. That's thenationalgallery.ca. I'm also excited because it is my 10-year anniversary as an author. My first book, Ex Machina, was published in October 2009, and to celebrate, now that it is 2019, as I record this, I've made Ex Machina available as an ebook for the first time. It was never available as an ebook previously, and I'm giving that ebook away for free at jonathanball.com/freebook. So go to jonathanball.com/freebook, and you can sign up, get all my exciting news when it's exciting and new, and other free resources that I'll just send you as I create them, plus a free book. And again, you can go to thenationalgallery.ca if you want to find out more about my new book and get a free book as well when you order that. So two free books and a paid book available to you. In any case, let's get into the show. I'm talking to Robin Richardson of Citadel. And Robin, could you tell listeners a little bit about what a Citadel is, what you mean by an MFA alternative, and just the general difference between sort of Citadel and, say, a more traditional MFA program?
Sure, yeah. First of all, thanks for having me, and hi, Jonathan. So Citadel I'm marketing it as an MFA alternative because the idea is you're getting just about everything you would in the MFA program without the certification necessarily, although we're working towards that in the future. But I've been informally mentoring and running workshops with a lot of emerging writers, some of whom have had MFAs and some of whom haven't. But everyone finds this kind of an essential path because you're getting individualized attention that you don't really get in your MFA program. So I wanted to turn it into its own brand and have a membership-based program where you come in and you get your workshops, you get seminars, you get various lectures and connection with the community, and you get, most importantly, really individualized attention that's tailored to your needs. So each of our members come in, they have an intake call, and we ask them what it is they want to accomplish this year and how we can help them do that. So I've been working individually with a lot of the members who we already have, sort of either, poetry from the ground up or how to finish up a chapbook and get it published. And I'm offering really practical advice on how publication works, how to communicate with editors, how to do a reading, how to use social media, and helping people accomplish these goals one-on-one. So we're working on hiring mentors from diverse backgrounds and with diverse specialties and forms and genres so that members have access to whatever mentor they want and then can switch it up throughout the year. Or, I have someone right now who's doing half the year poetry with me, and then we'll be doing half the year fiction with someone else. So, I forget the other layers of that question. What else was there?
Well, I guess the other sort of other thing that comes out of that is what kind of students do you think would fit best in this program? It sounds very directed, which I think is, as you say, one of the sort of problems of an MFA program is that it is a bit, you're in a classroom and the classroom is about this thing. You do get some individual attention, but it's not necessarily really specifically tailored to where you're at. Whereas it sounds, with the Citadel system is a bit more specific to where's a student at? What are they trying to accomplish specifically?
Exactly.
But is there any sort of level at which you think that student needs to be to get the most out of this program, or what is maybe the, I guess the simplest question is who is it for exactly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we do pass over the really, really beginner poets. I think you need to at least be at the point where, or writers in general, where you have had some experience, you've been doing some workshops, and at least you have the attitude of, I know I'm okay, but I want to get better, and I have goals. So, and within that, there's a broad range. Some people who have published books but have been on hiatus for a long time and want to get back into it and get into the community and find out what's happening in contemporary Canadian literature without just jumping in by themselves. They need that support system. And some people who are really emerging, have never published, but they've been reading and they know what they're doing more or less. They just really need to get into the technicalities of it and connect with more people. So we have a pretty broad range, but generally, we also have a screening process as we become more popular. So we're as we move forward, we might be asking people to resubmit in a year or two when they feel more ready. Part of what we want to do is have a community of writers that we feel are strong to represent us and that we want to represent. So taking some time and making sure you have a direct path before applying is pretty important. But outside of that, there's a great range because we are able to, as you say, customize for each student's needs.
Could you talk a bit about the importance of having that kind of clarity around your goals, or even what maybe you might do in the program to help a student get maybe greater clarity around their goals? Because I find when I do mentorship myself, one of the first thing I do is like ask the students, as you say, sort of an intake like you're talking about, and ask people, what do you even like want to be doing? And I find there's often a lot of confusion. Once they really boil down to, like, they maybe have a vague idea, but they don't know precisely maybe what they really want. And so people coming to the Citadel are going to have a clear vision of that. But I'm wondering if you have, what's at the start of that process? Like once you come in and you do that intake interview, what's sort of coming out of that? Like, what's the sort of next step that a student might go through? Could you just walk through like the student experience a little bit in terms of how you would have it, how it might unfold for somebody who's getting into the Citadel program?
Well, yeah, and interestingly, I think a lot of the time the goals that they have I end up moving them a little bit because it's a collaborative process. So, I mean, the sort of first characteristic I look for in a student is a willingness to let go of a little bit of power and a little bit of direction in order to take that instruction and grow with it. So that willingness to grow or slow down or speed up depending on what I see or what their mentor sees as good for them. So it's not to relinquish complete control, but to say, you're here because you need something, and to let go a little bit and let us guide you. So that's a big part of it. I do intakes with people all the time who say, okay, well, what I want to do is publish a book this year. And I say, well, one of the first pieces of advice I give is slow down, because imagine what you can learn this year if you really focus on improving your work and attending these seminars and getting to know poetry better, and shelve that idea of the book, because the longer you take to hone your craft, the stronger a book will be when you finally come out with it. So I end up curbing expectations a lot is what happens in that intake interview. We're not here to just say, okay, whatever you want to do, we're going to. And I find that in the MFA programs, I found that my experience was like, there was a lot of, okay, yeah, you're doing a good enough job and I can help you do this if you want. But there wasn't a lot of more aggressive, slow down, do this, don't do that. This is a direction you should explore before you jump into this one. So it's a lot about, I'll kind of listen to where the member is at. I'll read their writing, and I'll start to give assignments and reading recommendations and feedback based on what I think they need to explore more of in order to become a better writer.
I find that students often have a conflict between, like, they often are focused on a short-term goal or a long-term goal, but they don't have both. The ability to sort of see both in mind sometimes. So sometimes I'll see, as you say, like, people are very focused on a short-term goal, like, I want to have this book done and do this and do that, but they don't necessarily understand how maybe that would fit into a long-term career. Like, what's their career, or vice versa. They'll have like some career vision, but maybe don't know what to do. Maybe they're focused on something next that they shouldn't be. Like, and sometimes often, like you say, it's a book. Not that people shouldn't be writing books, but I do think you're right to point out like the MFA program really seems to push you in this direction. Like everybody's got to have a book. You're going to come out with a book, which is fine, but it's maybe not what everyone needs.
Well, and there's also a difference between coming out with a book and coming out with a great book.
Yes.
And so I do try to, and these are all things, like a lot of what I'm teaching because I figured it out too late and I made a lot of mistakes. And so I'm here to say, well, after 15 years of doing it this way, I can tell you how you're going to be derailed if you take this approach. And so I'm able to kind of give that scope to the students of saying, okay, you could publish a book this year and it could be okay, and somebody will probably publish it. But think about what that is as a building block to your 30, 40, 50-year career. And if we pan out a little bit and focus on a really solid foundation with a really good sense of craft and a really good sense of how to navigate the publication world and who you want to publish your book. I mean, that's another thing. I've had people sort of jump at the first offer, and I felt like, I wish you would just work with me another year and think about who would really be more appropriate to publish your book.
I remember when I was younger, I was meeting a bunch of older writers, or just writers who were, very much further along than I was, and I was, getting frustrated, trying to work on different things, trying to get things done. And I remember like seeing a lot of people putting out a book and then being really disappointed in it, and putting out a book, and then like there was, or they would talk to people, they were shy about their first book or whatever. And I remember like making a decision, which I think served me well, which was that I would not rush to put out a book as much as I wanted to, because I didn't want to be ashamed of my first book. And I was really specific about it. I don't want to be in the position where, one, I'm ashamed of my first book, but two, I don't want to be a one book, writer. And, it was very kind of tough to get in that mental space. But I think it served me well overall. And I wish I had been able to, take more guidance and kind of do it sooner. Like you're saying, like sometimes it's just about giving it up. Your idea of what you think the next steps are, because maybe different steps towards that same goal would be easier or just more, would get you there with a better book or what have you. Can you talk a bit more about like where this idea for Citadel came from, and sort of how it, it sounds like it came very much out of your own experience and your own things you were already doing. So I'm wondering like a little bit about how did you decide to, and why did you decide to move into this more ambitious project of, Citadel?
Yeah, it was. It's very organic, because I've just had these clients that I've been working with for so long who've been coming. In some, Paula Ferrante is a good example. She's come to almost every workshop I've hosted for the last 3 years and hired me as a mentor, and then hired me to look over more things. And I was getting more and more clients like that who wanted in on everything. And a lot of the feedback I was getting was they loved the sense of community that it gave, and the sense of support, and the fact that they could work with someone who knew their whole trajectory and knew their body of work. And I just thought, how good would it be if that could all fit under an umbrella and have a name and have a brand to it, and be something that people can really officially be a part of and relate to. And then you don't have to worry about, can I swing this workshop or that one? Once you're, and I'll talk a bit about how it works. Once you're a member of Citadel, an urban member, you have the mentorship, which is, I believe, 20 pages of feedback on poetry, line edits, and assignments twice a year. And that sort of individualized career help. So I'll answer a lot of emails about, how should I try to get an agent, or I want to write this application for this writer's residency. Will you help me fix that up? So all these little things always available to do. And then what you get is absolutely unlimited access to any of the events, workshops, seminars, lectures that we're throwing. So nobody has to sit there looking at their budget and thinking what they can attend, and everyone feels like they're a part of something. And I think that sense of being a part of something and just having unlimited access. So you just write me an email and you're registered, so long as it isn't full. The goal with programming is to have, I generally host about one event a week or more, 9 months of the year. So it's pretty full. You can get a lot out of it if you want. But yeah, in terms of how it formed, I think it was very organic. It just suddenly seemed like the absolutely necessary next step.
And can you talk a bit about the, as you say, like a bit more about the program itself and how it kind of maybe works? So again, if you just walk a bit further down, like the student experience. So somebody tomorrow applies and gets into this, or is accepted into the Citadel. What's going to happen over the next year?
So first thing is that intake call, in which we determine what kind of work they're going to be sending. And it really depends on the student, but a lot of them will say, give me the top 5-10 poets you're reading, give me your work, tell me where you're going with it. I start working on that, generally turn that around within a month or two. And so we have that ongoing one-on-one mentorship with their work going on throughout the year. And like I said, I help with grant applications and residency applications. And then you've got, for instance, tomorrow I'm hosting a 4-week seminar on the craft of poetry. So I have 10 of our members will be here tomorrow from 6 to 10. Might not go that long because it's the first week, but they're generally 2 to 4 hours, depending on attendance. And then I'm walking you through really understanding meter and then understanding different approaches to content. And so you'll have all of this sort of access to craft seminars, and then in the same month you'll have a workshop that you can attend and come workshop with other members what you've been working on, maybe from the seminar or maybe on your own, or maybe something you want in addition to the mentorship we've been doing. Then there are seminars for creativity. So there's something called Accessing the Unconscious. So you can register, and again, you can register for all of these so long as you do it fast enough. So Accessing the Unconscious, we're focusing more on because often I find poets have, and I'm focusing on poets because that's where my specialty is. As we get other mentors in, the programming starts to branch out and they'll be offering their own courses. But so I'm trying to provide a really full curriculum so that you're getting, the craft, but you're also getting content, because I find a lot of new writers have this idea of what a poem sounds like, but they don't really have anything to write about because they haven't been thinking about their lives in any depth, or their own unconscious, their own sort of interesting processes, or a way of processing the world around them. So we have a 3 or 4 week seminar on accessing the unconscious, where we really dig into personal archetypes and personal perspectives on the world and universal themes and personal themes. And then so you're gathering that. So it's a lot of focus on creativity, understanding what you actually have to say, and then having the confidence to say it and the craft to say it. As we move on, I want to expand to also, I don't know if this will start this year, although I'd like to, booking a week or two somewhere in the winter where members can register for a discounted fee and other people can register, and we can do a kind of collective overnight week-long retreat. And eventually, another goal eventually is to have a house where we can have regular writing retreats as well. And then
Sorry.
So I'll just sorry, and then so I was trying to think, because you asked about the whole year. So then there's a sort of check-in calls throughout the year just to see how progress is going and see if there are any requests or any other needs, and guest lecturers who come in with others. We have like Charlie Patch is coming in to talk about how to do stand at the mic and make a joke when you feel awkward, or how to hold your book so that you're not covering your face when you give a public presentation. These kinds of practical career things. And then towards the end, again, we reassess and see where you come with your goals and what else we need to meet before the year closes.
And can you talk about the difference between an urban membership and the distance membership?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and actually thinking of the distance membership, there's another. So we also have what we call the Vault on our website, and I'm working on a few other programs that we can get people registered on, and maybe there'll be an app where all of this is updated constantly. But the Vault, which is a big important thing for distance memberships, is where we're keeping things like interviews and guest blog posts from our mentors, PDFs from every seminar, and audio or video from the seminars and the workshops. So everyone has online access to everything as well. So that's open to all members. And that's a key point for the distance members. And the distance membership, basically, I just started because people were asking for it. People were saying, how can I access this without being in Toronto? So I came up with a lower price point for people who weren't going to be attending the events, but then promised that there will be PDFs from every handout from the event and audio for them online, so they can access the material. They just can't be in the room. And they get more feedback. So some people might even be in the city and not want to attend the event and get a distance membership because they want, instead of 20 pages, 40 pages. And they want, instead of twice a year rounds of edits, they want 4 times a year. So you're getting more of the kind of individualized attention and less of the in-person. And that's the primary difference. And when it comes to, this might be your other question, but when it comes to the mentors, it kind of works in reverse in terms of how much they make. So how it works with a mentor is you pay your membership fee and then you choose your mentor, and I pay them out from that fee. So if it's an urban mentor, I give them $600 because I'm still providing all of these services in the city. And if it's a distance mentor, they're doing more work, so we have a higher price point for them. And because I don't worry as much about sort of taking up seats in the workshops and seminars in the city for distance members.
And how does the mentorship work in the sense of, so if I'm a student coming in, I get matched with the mentor, depending on what I'm doing, right? And then do I still have access to the other mentors? Like if I come into, say I myself were going to join Citadel to work with Robin Richardson on a poetry book, do I still have access to, say, talking to Russell Smith about fiction, or like how does that all work?
I mean, so recently, and I only know how that might work because I've had a request for it. So I just spoke to a member who wants to do half the year poetry with me and half the year fiction with another mentor who I haven't officially hired yet, so I won't say who she is. But so we're just gonna split that, and so it's possible, but I think it has to be kept pretty simple. It can't be like I want to call everybody every week. I have to really figure out how that would work. So at this point, though, if you want to do half and half, that's very easy to do. The other way to access other mentors is once a mentor signs on and gets their first member to work with, they agree to do 3 events per year. So you can always attend a workshop with Russell, for instance, and get feedback and see whatever he's offering throughout the year.
Sure, that makes sense. So it's more this like it's very one-on-one, but then there's this kind of infrastructure around it where, as you say, you might be getting recordings of these events or able to go to these events where these other people might be there, and so on and so forth. And as you say, you're vaulting a lot of this material as well to make it accessible in the future. It sounds like is what you're talking about with that vault.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you sign on as a member, you get, 3 years from now, you sign on and you get that backlog of 3 years of everything we've been producing and putting out.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And so how is all this infrastructure building up? Is this just something that, is kind of happening privately, or do you have like some, kind of council funding behind this, or how did you kind of set in motion making it a more, like something much bigger than just what you were doing before?
It was lucky enough that, aside from some initial investment in terms of turning my apartment over into something that was really conducive to this kind of thing, and eventually I'll be upgrading, but it started to pay for itself very quickly with the members who came on board right away. Just made an announcement on social media and got a lot of members who were not only excited for what they were going to get, but were really, really excited to be basically investing more or less, supporting it from the ground up and knowing that we would need that support. So right now we don't have any government funding, and I'm not sure if I would go that route. I'm talking to a lot of publishers who are interested in maybe being donors or friends of Citadel in exchange for some cross-pollination. Maybe they can send some of their authors here when they need a year to kind of refresh what they're doing, and we can mention them at our workshops and sort of keep them in mind when we have places we want to send our members. So I think, and I love that too, because it's a great way to really emphasize that community involvement. So and again, I won't say who yet, but I'm meeting with quite a few people who are interested in finding a way to collaborate, because it's paying for itself so far, but there are things this year, I've kind of done the math, and there's about $20,000 worth of legal and administrative work that needs to get funded somehow.
Now, maybe I'll just note for people listening, if you're listening to this and you're kind of looking at Citadel's website, you're curious about the programs. If you live in Canada, one of the things that I don't know a ton of details about this, Rob, and you can maybe talk more about this. But I can tell already from what I can see that this would be eligible for professional development grants, like as individual artists getting professional putting in if you could easily as an artist apply to have the tuition covered to some degree, if not fully, through depending on where you're living and what grants you're eligible for. Can you say more about that sort of thing, like funding for students options that are kind of around or that you know of, or that you might have?
Yeah, I've got a few members who have already applied for their Canada Council grants for professional development for artists. So that grant, and I've listed. I'll put it up on our news section because I've just posted that to the Facebook and Twitter feed. And I will be working on putting together a PDF for potential students who don't have the means and saying, this is the portal you go through. Here are some grant writing tips. Here's the information you need about me and Citadel in order to apply. But yeah, write into info@thecitadelretreat.com. Ask me for the information you need. Generally, you need the acceptance from me that we want to work with you as a member, and then I can send you a sort of a CV of mine or the mentor you're working with, and you can apply for funding and get this whole thing fully covered, which I love.
Yeah, and also, if you're listening, thecitadelretreat.com is the website where you can sign up for updates about the Citadel and just get other information about it. And Robin Richardson, where are you online?
My website would be sithowyouvant.org. And same on Instagram, sit how you want. Yeah, I think everything's sit how you want except Twitter.
And I forget your Twitter handle offhand. I think it's Robin_RR.
Yeah,
you may correct me, but I know it vaguely because I quoted, my new book has a quote from Robin's Twitter feed.
I love that.
That's like, I worked it into a poem. So that's like a weird, sort of side note.
What was the line?
Is very worthwhile. Are there any other things that you think make Citadel kind of unique or interesting, like very different from, say, the MFA experience, or just something that you think would be, what would you when you're looking at how designing this program and kind of thinking about how you want to take it in the future? I assume part of what you're doing is looking at kind of what you wish you had when you were kind of trying to figure some of these things out. I know that when I do these podcasts, it's something that I just always have in mind. Like, what do I wish somebody would have told me, or or even now, like, what are things that I still want to know more about and I haven't, and I wish I knew 10 years ago. So I'm just wondering, like, what are the sort of core things you think make Citadel experience just different?
Yeah, so there are maybe three core points. The one, as we've discussed, is that individualized attention, understanding your needs and goals and making sure that you're actually getting, because, the MFA, you have your class and maybe a teacher likes you and pays a little extra attention, but not to the degree that they're really sitting there thinking about how you can succeed personally. Like, that's not a preoccupation generally. And you're very lucky if you get that kind of mentorship. So I just naturally, anyone I work with, I think, what is your full potential? That's another part of it, though. I think the MFA has at least in my experience, and I love my school, so I'm not, it didn't work for me, but there was a lot of good enough and, teaching, but not really, it wasn't as aggressive as I would have liked. And my approach to teaching and the way Citadel promotes teaching is a little more, it's a little more aggressive. Like I say, I want you to really leave your ego at the door and come in willing to take instruction and willing to try things that might be uncomfortable because you're trusting that your mentors can see a greater path for you than you can. So it's a very intimate and unusual way of doing things. So I think that one's important, and the way that the community unfolds. Like I want this to also be a really pleasurable and interesting experience. So the spaces that we create, I don't know if you saw pictures from our launch party, but it was really luscious and fun and beautiful. And the space here in the Toronto Clubhouse is designed to be the same way. So I want people to come and feel special and good and comfortable enough to kind of let go and really grow. So there's that intimacy. And then in terms of the structure, because there isn't this institutional overhead, I've been talking to the mentors who are applying, who work in institutions, and I think the amount that a mentor is able to make is greater, and yet the cost that a member pays is lower. So it works out really beautifully.
I think one of the, I mean, there are good things specific for MFA programs, but one of the problems is the situation inside the university, and it's a bureaucratic issue. I mean, at one point in my PhD program, I actually created a form because the form I wanted didn't exist. So I made a fake form and submitted the fake form, and and then they had to legitimate it as a real form, and it was a very complicated bureaucratic thing. I know that I was very lucky to have an excellent mentor in my. I didn't do an MFA program, but I did a PhD program that had a creative thesis option, and so. But I was very lucky. I worked with Suzette Mayer, who was excellent, exactly the person I needed to work with, and really fully invested, fully cares. She since became my biggest supporter on Patreon. Like she's very very
one in a million
wonderful, supportive person. But when I was there at the time, politically, it was a bad decision to work with Suzette. Like in terms of trying to move my academic career forward and get a job at an MFA program and so on, I would have been better off picking a different person. At the time, Suzette didn't have a PhD. She now has a PhD. But I remember there was a bunch, because she didn't have, it was a situation where even the department was sort of, suggesting maybe I might we had to get special permission for her to be able to be my supervisor and so on. So, it all worked out, and I'm happy with the end result, but I could, and it worked out fine. Like I had a good experience in that program overall, and with all the different professors as well. But I would keep coming up to these bureaucratic hurdles where basically they were trying to stop me from doing what I wanted to do, and they had good reasons, but they were wrong. And then Suzette at the same time would be pushing back on certain things I wanted to do, but was right. And so I found it was a real negotiation, and so much of it could have just not been a negotiation. Like it could have just been simpler and streamlined, and just me and Suzette, and then having the access to these other people, at time to time, at events. Like, so it seems like to me like a very much the kind of program that I kind of wish an MFA program was, if that makes sense. And so I really appreciate you starting this, moving forward this thing, and kind of I'm very curious to see where it goes. So I guess I'm wondering, sort of coming out of this, in terms of was there a mentor that was really important to you? Is this sort of where part of this drive came, or do you kind of just wish you had that and didn't? Like, where does sort of your interest in mentorship itself come from?
It comes in time, and this is actually how most of what I end up doing in my life forms. It really does. I mean, and again, I had great teachers at Sarah Lawrence. But no, I have never had a really dedicated long-term mentor, and I've never been pushed the way I wanted to be pushed, and I've never had that career counseling that I wanted. So I fumbled so much, and then I meet these people who really knew what they were doing, and I was envious, and I don't understand how they figured it out so fast. But they had established mentors who were dedicated to what they were doing. So everything I do here, I do because it's what I wanted. And it's not just what I wanted for myself and what I want for my students, but I can see, I love the idea of the new writers coming up in Canada having a much better handle on what they're doing and being more open-minded and diplomatic and less egotistical about their work, and more willing to learn and more willing to help each other. And I feel like I can guide and lead that slow shift through Citadel with a real focus on genuine growth and genuine engagement, and kind of get rid of a bit of the things like I'm selfish in all of this. I guess not. I'm giving people what I wish I had, but I'm also creating the environment I wish I had.
I've found, I was, as I say, very lucky to have sort of Suzette as a mentor, Suzette Mayer as a mentor, and also the screenwriter, George Tolles, who was a screenwriter for Guy Madden, was a very powerful mentor figure for me. And I can look back and think of where every moment in my career where I did something right is because of something I learned from those people. And all the other times I was screwing things up.
Yeah, it's so important. It really is important. And I love seeing the shift when I work with people throughout the years and seeing how they just blossom. And sometimes it's just about confidence. Sometimes they just needed somebody to see what they were doing and to acknowledge what direction it could go in and what they were capable of. But I really, a few pats on the back in school, great, but I really didn't get that guidance. And I made so many mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're doing well. But as you say, it just really helps to have somebody you can go to ask a question and get an answer that isn't not necessarily the answer you have to accept fully 100%, but that has some context around it, and there's so many invisible things you don't necessarily understand, even just basic practical things like taxes as a writer. Like things that people don't talk about, but you could ask somebody, like a mentor who would have, could at least push you in a direction more specifically.
Yeah, and it takes so many writers to learn about things. Like you have to be talking to the right kind of generous person at the right party to go, what's public lending rights?
Yeah.
What's the writer's reserve?
Sitting over here beside me, being quiet, is this guy, this artist, Gregory Kmichik. I'm his studio here where I work sometimes, and I harassed him for 5 years to get public lending right forms filled out, and he finally did it. And he's he's
so high
doing well with it. He's making more money than me on this public lending right, and and he's further along in his career than I was, but still didn't know about this public lending right. So as you say, you don't want to be necessarily depending on those chance encounters or people harassing you at a party or on the street. If you could have a more structured way to go about it or pursue the things you want to pursue, I think it certainly helps to have. An MFA program has its values, certainly, but now you're in, as you say, for a whole university degree, and the expense is astronomical. When maybe you don't necessarily want that.
For the university, I think it's hard for the university to know whether they're giving each individual student everything they need. You've got all your different classes, you choose them. It's not that the program isn't set up so that you understand your contract negotiation and grant applications, and you understand as well as you understand your craft, as well as you understand how to find content within yourself, as well as you understand how to communicate with your peers. Whereas this, I think this will expand. So I really have to set into place how we're going to make sure that it can expand with that central nervous system that understands and makes sure that every student is getting access to all of the information they need, which is part of why the vault is so important, because that will all be there over time.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me. It's been really informative. And I think, and if you're listening and you're thinking you need to know more about the Citadel retreat, and again, go to thecitadelretreat.com or search for Citadel and Robin Richardson, and you can take a look. You're there. They have application forms. They have other information on the site, and there's a calendar of what's coming up. If you want to just get a sense of the kinds of how the program looks and what kind of events are actually happening. Do you have any kind of last things you want to say, Robin, about Citadel, or about just sort of what you're looking forward to in the next year with it? Not
really. I will say that for anyone who's curious, one of the benefits of getting in this early is that there's still a lot of time and movement, and things are still flexible. So you can call me if you want to know more about it. Just give me a call, and I have some time to talk. And just to let people know that it will be over the next 2 months in particular. November, December is when we'll start really taking on up new members. because we're gonna get those mentors up. So eventually you'll see, I think I'm going for a set of 6. It's really, really, I have some really, I'm not going to say who yet, but I have great applications coming in for mentors. So that's exciting. So look for that maybe in a month. And yeah, give a call and ask questions. I want this to be really accessible. Apply for the grant. Take your time. But I love the idea that you can just have this. Yeah. Thank you.